Welcome back to Stu Structures. I am Mark Stewart and we're here to do some scratch building. Oftentimes when you want something for your model railroad, it's just not available in kit form. So I'm here to show you how to go through the process of scratch building these structures for your model railroad. We'll go through the entire process of modeling from coming up with the resources, pictures, prints, measurements, to getting the materials for the structure, and then going through the whole process of building the structures. And then oftentimes you'll have the self-satisfaction of the fact that you built this for your model railroad and that no one else is going to have one exactly like it. This is an exciting process that we'll go through in this channel, and hopefully you'll learn how to scratch build structures for yourself. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, grab your tools and your materials, and let's do some scratch building. So welcome back to Stu Structures. I'm Mark Stewart. We're here to continue working on the Jitney. This is going to be a rough week for me, actually the next several weeks. So I'm not sure what I'll get done this week, but we are still working on the Jitney. So we're going to get started on this, and Lord help me, we'll see how much we can get done this week. Let's just jump into this. Now we're going to continue on to begin with the main part of the truck here, and you can see there's just a whole lot left that we haven't got into, and this is how our bottom of this was left in the last episode. So we're going to continue on and build the frame and the underside of all this. Now the engine already had a frame started back there, so I found some plastic and just cut two frame members that matched up to that frame and glued those in place, and that's basically the frame done. Now the next thing that needs to come back through there is the exhaust, and the exhaust pipe comes down from this motor as well, and I found this tubing that's about the same size as that exhaust. So what I did was I found a larger piece of tubing to put a muffler back in the system and kind of rounded off the cut edges of that and then glued it onto that plastic pipe. Now the rear end, once I glue this in place, I don't want to put a straight pipe because they wouldn't have had the exhaust coming back and going in right underneath the second car. It would have been mounted off to the side. So I've got to find a way to, bend some pipe and make this back here. Now the plastic is just way too small to try to heat and bend that easily. So what I did was just found some copper wire that was the same dimension as the pipe and just stripped it down and bent me a pipe and mounted it between the frame and the exhaust to hang down underneath the rear end of the car, and that's an exhaust in place underneath this thing. Now I just went ahead and put a first coat of some black underneath of this just to start the painting underneath of this, and I'm just going to let this set for the time being and come back and finish this. Now the other thing on these are all these windows and other areas that we haven't began working on yet, and while there is still some filing to be done under the windows and stuff that are in place as they are now, I need to put a track in place for these windows that slid open and close. So I'm using this 2x2 and this 1x4 scale lumber to create the tracks above and below the window openings. And I'm not measuring this, I'm just cutting it to length and setting it in place and creating this. And this is just the beginning of the 2x2s, even with the bottom of the windows glued into place. And while that was setting up, I don't know the collars for this, but inside most cabooses and cars like this back in the day, they had this, this odd green as an interior collar in a lot of things. So I'm just going to use this green to mimic what you would have seen in a lot of other things. And I come back and glue that 1x4 on the window frames on either side, and we have tracks for the windows on both sides. And you saw there also I had started painting the black floor inside there as well, the first coat. And this is how we left coach number 2 in the last video. So, before I glue that other side in there, I'm going to go ahead and put this, cut a floor for it. So I measure this out and cut the floor and start cutting the step out just like I did on that other first coach. And I just do this and then glue a thin piece underneath of that for the first step, and create an angle out of 2 other strips of styrene and cut these angles for a bracing on all this. I come back and glue that lower step into place and start gluing these angles on. Now I am going to have to come back and do some filing and trimming and cleaning up on this, but basically that's the steps kind of in place. Now we still have, those wheels sets for that second car to finish. And, just to keep the axle straight in this, what I do is I just use my vise and glue these into place and turn it while it's in place there to get the axle straight. And here you can just see the glue build up for the differential on the rear axle for the first car and done. Now to mount the suspension and the axles underneath that frame, I need some blocks to mount the suspension on. So I'm just making these little small blocks here to set on the frame where I can put the suspension on and mount it to the frame. So there you have this week's little bit of work on the Jitney. I really have so much going on. All those fruit trees that I talked about came in early, and I'm trying to get, working on potting them up. Meanwhile, it's in the teens again at night, which is stressing me out because I've been force growing some stuff, and the teens are a little too cold, so I've had to do a lot of covering and uncovering during the day. And I had to put an extra heater in my hoop house where I grow mainly food in the ground during the summer. It's a high tunnel, but I had started a bunch of bulbs and stuff in big containers early to try to force grow stuff for the flower market this year, and they do not like teens. They're pretty much annuals in my area here, so I've had to put a tent inside the tunnel and do some things there, and they may be all right. This last night was the last night in the teens, so we'll see how that goes. But I still have all those fruit trees to pot up. Hopefully getting started on them today. Maybe things will thaw out enough to do that. I just have tons and tons of things that I really need to get done, and unfortunately I can't make working on this Jitney my priority. I need to pay my bills and all that kind of thing first in life. And kind of watching over the homestead. My sister's out of town for a couple of weeks, and all the animals except for the chickens had went to my sister's and other areas to be taken care of. So I only do have the chickens to be taken care of right now, but that's a little something added to the list each day you got to do. I don't mind doing it, but it's just something you got to do. In any case, it was nice to get this far on the Jitney this week. Tune in again next week. Thanks for coming back and sharing this time with me. I do appreciate it. Hopefully, and I have gotten messages from many people about saying that, well, thanks to me, they're out there scratch building some stuff. And that's what it's all about. I could do a video or two of the next level. Everything I have built to this point, I've not done weathering, I've not done the exceptional stuff. There are several people out there that, when you look at pictures of their work, you have to look at it a long time before you can find something in the photograph that tells you it's not real. And, I can do that type of thing, but generally I've just been showing you building techniques to this point and not really got into the finished products. Maybe at some point I'll go back and we'll do some weathering on structures and things like that, and I'll explain things I'm doing. To go one step further, maybe when I get into my next structure of this coaling tower, which I haven't been able to work on either due to my lack of time. I'm lucky to have time for the Jitney. Maybe we can go a step further with that when we start building it, and we'll see how that goes. But I would like to start teaching, the next level. There's lots of things you can do that take an average structure and turn it into a wow structure, and I've never really went over any of that in any of my videos. They've basically just been basic build videos. And I'm glad some of you are being inspired and jumping out there and scratch building just from watching things I do. My techniques may work for you, they may not. Everybody has their own way of doing things. Nothing's right and nothing's wrong. It's whatever works for you. And that's what I stress on people. As long as you're having fun in the hobby, that's what it's all about. It's a hobby, and it's all about having fun. If it suits your needs, that's fine. That's fantastic, man. If it makes you happy, that's what this is all about. So enjoy the hobby. Happy model railroading.